Good morning. Oh, come on. It's the last day of the conference. You weren't out late. Good morning. Oh, very nice. I know you really were out late, so you just finally, this is probably your first session of the day, rolling in off of the Riverwalk and all that sort of stuff. But we're going to get started here because we have only an hour and probably 3 hours worth of stuff to talk about and have you guys interact with and so on as we get going. So we're gonna dive right in, and since that's the name of our title, that's kind of appropriate. So what we're going to do is just quickly introduce ourselves and then give you the keys to the kingdom. We're going to tell you up front all the secrets are in one document, and that way, if we don't get to everything, you'll have that document to kind of work off of as well. So I'm Chris Walsh, and until recently, I was the Director of Innovation at New Tech Network. I'm actually in my last couple days as a New Techer, and I'm about to go on to another adventure. But for now, this is my last official duty as a Director of Innovation of New Tech Network. I'm very excited. And why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Vanessa.
Is that on? Hold on.
Not yet. 1 second.
Go for it.
I'm Vanessa Meno. I'm a new senior at New Tech High School in the Napa Valley.
And I'm Peter Abood, and I'm actually an alumni of New Tech High in Napa, and I'm also a teacher and PBL coach in our district.
Very cool. So what we wanted to do just before we dive into any content and show you a lot of projects and videos and define sort of what deeper learning is and all that, we want to point you to this document. One of my lessons I learned a long time ago is you got to leave everybody with something. But today, everything needs to be dynamic, right? So we've created a Google Doc for you, and we may actually make changes and update this as we go along. But you can get to it from that short URL there, and I'll make it a little bit bigger so everybody can kind of see it, because if you have a digital device and you're dangerous and you know how to use it, then let's make that really big there for you to see. That's the short URL. So it's goo.gl/capital D, capital G, capital T, WG. If you go there, you can get this exact document. You can follow along, play at home if you want. And if we miss something or skip something or don't have time for it or whatever, then you've got all sorts of resources in there that can be your own homework for after this session. All right? Everybody got that, or you need it for one more second? 1 more second, that's all we're going to give you. One other thing that we thought we'd tell you is that, especially me, I tend to talk really fast, and I'm okay with that. So in the session evaluations, when you all say he talked too fast, I can take that. That's okay, I've heard that for a long, long time. But what that means is that if we go over something really fast, again, you've got this Google handout here that you can go back to and go deeper on your own at any given time, okay? But I think nicely it'll be balanced out with Peter and Vanessa, who don't talk as fast as me. All right, so that's the handout, and we're going to jump into, by the way, our Twitter addresses are up there as well. We always kind of leave this out. Twitter is going to be important throughout the session, so if you can tweet and if you've got Twitter and you know how to use it, then you might want to tweet us or some of the hashtags we've got up there for Deeper Learning and ISTE13. So Peter is at P. Abood, Vanessa is at Vanessa Meno, and I am at Fitzwalsh. And so you can tweet as we go along. It's a great way to kind of keep track of our thoughts collectively as we go, and we're going to check in on those hashtags kind of as we go. All right. You guys ready to go? Oh, gosh.
What was that?
It's a big room. Are you ready to go? All right.
There you go.
Well, you heard a little bit about us. Let's learn a little bit about you before we move on. How many of you are classroom teachers? Wow. Almost all. That's very awesome. How many of you are administrator types of any kind? Excellent. Anybody on sort of the professional development or higher ed, sort of teacher training side of things? Excellent, okay. Who did I miss? Oh, librarians always say, you missed the librarians, right? Yeah, librarians. Okay.
How many of you are students?
1! Awesome. Who else did I miss? Product people and other people, others. Okay, others. There's others out there. All right. So our job today is we're excited to kind of tell you a little bit more how we imagine deeper learning and technology kind of blending together. And we are representing New Tech, but we want you to know that's part of a larger movement around deeper learning. This is not a promotion for New Tech at all. It's actually more about some of the ideas that are really taking hold all over the country in a lot of great schools and a lot of great classrooms, and in fact, many of your classrooms as well. So that's why it's a dive into deeper learning. It's definitely not about New Tech. So we already got these, right? You got your digital handout. You can tweet as we go along, Deeper Learning and ST13 and all of us there. And we're going to dive right into it. So I'm going to kick us off, and then we're going to pass it over to Peter and then Vanessa, so you don't have to listen to my hoarse voice the whole time here. But what is deeper learning? It feels like just yesterday we were talking about 21st century skills and things like that. Well, whatever term you prefer, the 4 C's, 21st century skills, deeper learning, the concepts are roughly the same, right? Deeper learning delivers the skills and knowledge students need to succeed in a world that is changing at an unprecedented pace. That last part is really critical, at an unprecedented pace. We can't afford, right, to teach students something that is finite. There is no such thing as finite knowledge anymore. It's always shifting, it's always changing, and the tools are changing with it. So we have to be flexible and adapt, and a lot of what we talk about when we talk about deeper learning skills teaches kids those skills to be resilient, to succeed not only in school and college, but also in life and careers of their choice, in a wide variety of careers. A lot of times people want to talk about deeper learning as something that's only about maybe careers or career tech. And I'm hoping that you came today, you're part of the group of people that are transcending that message. There is no such thing as career tech anymore. There is no such thing as just college readiness anymore. There is no such thing as life skills anymore. We need something that does all of that. College and career success, not just readiness, but success and life success as well. So the Hewlett Foundation, we work very closely with the Hewlett Foundation out in California, and they have a number of initiatives, and one of their initiatives is the Deeper Learning Initiative. They've been one of the biggest proponents of this movement the last few years. And this is how they define deeper learning. They say that it prepares students to master core academic content, and that's a really big one, by the way. Really big. Oftentimes, people call deeper learning and 21st century skills fluff. And they say, oh, but you're not mastering the standards. It's at the top of the list. You can't ignore the standards. You can't ignore content knowledge. Sure, content knowledge is changing and shifting, and we've got these great Common Core standards to kind of rally around, but you still have to tackle that one, and it's at the top of the list. I want to make sure we hear that, because there's a recent blog that came out from a couple of folks that called deeper learning fluff, basically. And how can it be fluff when it starts with content knowledge as something that has to be mastered? So the things below that are a lot of the four or five C's that you guys are used to. Thinking critically, absolutely important in solving complex problems. Working collaboratively, absolutely essential, and I think you'll hear a lot about that with Vanessa in a few minutes and see how we do that at New Tech. Communicate effectively, absolutely essential skill, right? Not just giving presentations, but interpersonal communication as well, and also increasingly global communication. One of the things that we believe at New Tech is that you can't teach collaboration in isolation. It can't just be 3 or 4 kids sitting around a table collaborating. That's not how the world works anymore. How many of you in this room have collaborated with somebody outside of your state this last year? Right? And you're educators, right? Imagine business people. It would be everybody in the room. There is no such thing as collaborating in your building anymore, right? And so we have to teach that skill to kids. Learning how to learn. The metacognitive side, but also just the side of being a self-directed learner. And then the last one down here, you heard in that video, if any of you saw the opening video that was on PBS around deeper learning, they talked a lot about agency and the growth mindset. And recently the Hewlett Foundation has just kind of summed that all up with academic mindsets, the skills that are essential to succeed academically, but also to be resilient and to have your own agency and an ownership of your learnings. And that's an important skill in and of itself. So that's how we define deeper learning. Luckily, there's a lot of people doing this. There are great partners that we have all around the country that are part of this deeper learning network that assemble 3 or 4 times a year to swap resources, share information, and help each other out and support each other in this work. And these are fantastic organizations. Asia Society, Big Picture, Envision Schools, Connect Ed California, High Tech High, Expeditionary Learning, EdVisions, Internationals Network, New Visions, New Tech. How many of you either work with one of those organizations or work at one of the schools in those organizations? A handful, okay? But they're right here in front. Notice how they're the eager ones right here in front? Yeah, right? Okay? This is powerful stuff. Almost all of these network of schools share a commonality around 2 things. Number 1, student-centered learning. And Vanessa's going to talk more about what that is in a second. But the student is at the center. And number 2, hands-on, relevant, project-based learning experiences. They're absolutely critical to the success of deeper learning. It's a given. So if we don't talk about PBL enough, it's just because we assume that you know that that has to happen to make learning relevant. And these schools and these networks are leading the way. And we're proud today to share projects from multiple networks, some of the work that's happening. So I'm going to hand it off to Peter, who's going to talk about just one of those networks, which he and I belong to, and Vanessa to the New Tech Network.
So New Tech High started in 1996 in Napa, and what New Tech Network does is it's a school development organization that takes that work that New Tech High started in 1996 and amplifies it across the country. So they've got 15 years of evolving principles, and this is based on from when New Tech High started and what they've learned as they've developed over the last several years. And New Tech schools are based on 3 core principles: culture that empowers. So this is student-centered culture. The schools have students they take ownership of the school, the students work together, they collaborate, the staff work together, they collaborate with each other, students and staff collaborate with each other. So it's a very, very collaborative environment, and it has a very positive culture. Second, teaching that engages, and as Chris said about project-based learning, that's usually how we do that, either through project or problem-based learning, and so that's what provides the experiences that are really relevant for students and that really engage them in what they're doing, and that leads to deeper learning. And then finally, technology that enables. New Tech High in Napa is a one-to-one BYOD environment, like most of the New Tech schools are also one-to-one. And that technology is used to support the learning and to support instruction, not as an add-on, but as a way to really push deeper learning. And so it's a tool that we use in our work. And so New Tech Network's got a total of 120 schools in 18 states across the country, as well as 1 in Australia. And what we're finding is that this approach to teaching and learning is working. And so we've actually got a student outcomes report that has all sorts of data that's linked to our Google Doc, and I've also got a couple hard copies if you're interested in one of those. But here we have a few main points here we'd like to share with you. So the first one is we have 75% more. Students are growing 75% more in higher order thinking, and that's based on the CWRA, which is the College Work and Readiness Assessment. And what we do is we test the students as freshmen and again as seniors, and we look to see how they're growing. And so our New Tech students are doing significantly better than comparison groups.
And those comparison groups, by the way, are college prep independent schools primarily. So we're comparing our national network of public schools with kind of high-end college prep academies. So that's a pretty significant finding there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then students that go to New Tech graduate at a 6% greater rate than the national average. So our students are staying in school and they're graduating. And next bullet point. And then students that go to New Tech enroll in college at a rate of 9% greater than the national average, and that's regardless of where the school is located and kind of the demographics. So we've got New Tech schools in urban, suburban, rural areas. I think we've even got a New Tech school in an Amish community, which is pretty crazy. And regardless of where you go, we're seeing greater success compared to the comparison groups.
And the college retention rate is much, much higher than the national average, much higher, and that's all in our outcomes report as well.
So now we're going to be talking about student-centered learning. So inquiry-driven, which means that it's an approach where students are in the driver's seat. Students are asking questions. Students are teaching. The teacher is there to facilitate. We are asking questions, and we're getting our need-to-knows answered. Do you guys know what need-to-knows are? Yes? No?
No, they have a need-to-know around a need-to-know.
Do you have a need-to-know what a need-to-know is?
Absolutely.
A need to know is a question that you get at the very beginning of a project that doesn't necessarily get answered right away. It is your job to figure out what the answer is and share it with the rest of the class. So it's not your teacher just giving you the answers. It's the students finding what those answers are. I have a teacher back in Napa. His name is Mr. Serene. Every time you go and ask him a straightforward question, well, that's a point of inquiry. Go find out. You never get a straightforward answer from him. You have to go find it out. The next bullet point is relationships matter. At the school I'm at, we only have 100 kids in my class. You will be working with that person or the entire group, regardless of what year you're in. We like to infuse projects where there are one kid from each grade. So we infuse grade projects. And we also have faculty to faculty, and they're learning, and students are learning. But faculty and students are partners in learning. We're all trying to learn together. Another one is real-world relevance. To graduate from New Tech, you need a portfolio, which we will show later, I think. And that incorporates things that you've learned through the 4 years and in one single portfolio that you're able to show to colleges or to employers, which will help you move forward in the real world. And your deeper learning outcomes. When we show our, if I show you my portfolio, sorry, I'm a little nervous if you guys can't tell.
You're doing great, Vanessa. Keep it up. You're doing great.
These deeper learning outcomes, which Chris talked about in the very beginning, is infused with the projects that we're about to talk about. So now we're going to move on.
We'll come back and reinforce
Yes.
many of these as we kind of go along. What we wanted to do just here in this beginning part, though, was give you just kind of a sense of what deeper learning is, how it's being used at just one of the deeper learning network kind of partner schools and networks, which is New Tech Network. But then also start to ask the question, how does that connect to technology? And recently, we ran a workshop. We had all the different deeper learning partners together, and I ran a workshop, and I posed this question to them. And I had these great diagrams and charts, and I was mapping like Bloom's taxonomy and all these great things into technology tools and all this. And at the end of the day, we had this like 2-hour workshop, deep dive into it. They all said, you know what, Chris, this is all great, and it's fantastic that you're trying to map these tools in all these different ways, but it really just is all about learning, isn't it? Doesn't it start with what you want kids to know and do? And we said, yeah, of course that's right. And he said, well, then just forget about all that mapping, mumbo-jumbo stuff and just say what it is. Deeper learning, digital technology can amplify deeper learning. That's what it is. And we've said that all along. We say that a lot. But at the end of the day, sometimes we try to overthink it a little bit, and it doesn't need to be overthought. It's all about great learning and what are the best tools to help that happen. And we believe that there are a lot of great digital tools to do that. In addition, as you're going to see in a few minutes, there are a couple of key themes that we want you to look for as we go along. One is that oftentimes it's good to use multiple tools, digital tools at once. To go deeper, you can't just rely on one. PowerPoint is not good enough to go deeper. I said it right here, okay? PowerPoint is not good enough to go deep. It's not. That's not really taking advantage of all the tools out there. Now, a presentation mapped with some online communication via Twitter and social networks, mapped with some simulations and some game building and some other products students might create. Now we're talking about ways that we actually build deeper learning, right? Okay. Choice is another one of those. You can't have just one size. If you do a project and you give students one choice, you're not giving it the students the empowerment they need. So there need to be multiple choices, multiple options at all times. So you will see some of these themes as Vanessa and Peter kind of talk about how we run some projects at New Tech and then otherwise. So the question is what does deeper learning and technology look like? If you've got a Twitter account up and you remember our hashtags of hashtag deeper learning and hashtag ISTE13, right now we want you to just tweet. So far, just in the first 10 minutes here, what do you think that deeper learning looks like? What are some key words you heard or some thoughts you even have? Maybe at your schools, there's some other deeper learning network schools here that have. And then we'll bring this up in our Twitter feed in just a couple of minutes, okay? So tweet away. What does deeper learning and technology look like? And that's the kind of driving question that we're going to try to answer over the next 30 minutes or so. All right, so you guys ready? Okay, we're going to jump into some actual demonstration of stuff. And again, this is all in that digital handout. And so if you were to go back in, here it is. You can follow along kind of as we go. Vanessa and Peter are going to talk about a particular project done at Napa New Tech and talk about how that project is facilitated, show you some examples, some things that students generated in that project, talk a little bit how it was assessed, and then we're going to flip it, and I'm going to talk about how something was done at Envision Schools, one of our other partners. Okay? You guys ready to go?
Yes.
It's all yours. If you want to drive, Peter? You want me to drive?
Yeah, I can drive.
Okay, cool.
I will do better this time, I promise. I'll actually give you guys some information.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Cool.
So what I want to show you is a project that led to deeper learning for me. The project was called Beyond Earth. If you want to pull up the entry document. There it is. So an entry document can be used to introduce a project, and it can be in any form, a video, a skit, a scenario. In this case, it's a letter from NASA, and they called New Tech students to create a biodome for the use of intersolar system planets. It was the New Tech students' job to design and create a habitat using Google SketchUp or any other form of modeling technique that infused the chemistry content that we need to know, but also maintain a science fiction blog as well as the biodome, which we describe key aspects of our new planet. So our teacher also gave us prompts where we had to answer in our blog, but the prompts could have been answered in a very direct and straightforward way, but also our other groups had to go and look at our blogs and, ask questions or reflect on what they thought our blog, was or sounded like. So we also felt like our peers needed to be entertained. So our blogs each were very creative, and we tried to engage our readers.
So before you move on, two quick things. Can you tell them why you think entry documents are important? What does that do for a project to start with something like this?
An entry document gives you the first question, the question that you need to answer throughout the entire project. So the driving question here, I felt for me, was how am I able to live on another planet, and what would I need to do for us to survive there? And that was the main point of the project, but we also had to infuse the chemistry content to answer that question.
Very cool.
And just to clarify, so this is not NASA did not actually come to New Tech, right, and ask students to do this. Sometimes we do real-world projects that are fake real-world, so just simulated real-world. And so we find that can be equally engaging as having an actual real-world situation.
Wait, you mean this was fake?
A little bit.
Sorry to burst your bubble, Vanessa. All right.
So now I want to show you the final product of what our teacher was looking for. A student, Algame Ramos, and her group created this blog, and they landed on the moon of Titan. I don't think that's not a planet. And so this is what a blog and the blog post would look like. So if you scroll down, you can just see paragraphs that would answer questions, but they also told a story. If you go down just a little more, you can see a 2D model of what their space pod or biodome was supposed to look like. So if they were to create it, this is what they would make. And they actually made this in Google SketchUp. They included a deuterium fusion reactor, a orbital defense grid, and a magnetic acceleration cannon, which are all names that they created, just to spice it up a little bit. All of their blog posts were exactly what the teacher was looking for. They answered the question, they answered the content, they knew everything when they were presenting, but they also made it so creative that when you're reading it, you're kind of on your toes waiting to see what would happen. What was also very cool about this project was our teacher would respond to our posts, giving us a scenario or a conflict to what would happen. So in their case, a fiery, hurling planet was going towards them. And basically she said, what do you do? So they answered and created a video, an animation that Brittany Odom had made, where basically they blow it up.
Can we show it real quick? Is it long?
Yeah.
Let's
No,
do
it's
it.
not very long,
Cool.
I don't think.
All right. Can you make it big full screen?
Yeah.
You can just
There we go.
She did this all by hand and animated it.
Do you know what tool she is? No.
Actually.
Is there sound? Maybe not.
Oh.
Can you tell me?
So this is giving some visual of what their space pod would look like. If you knew that student, she shows no emotion ever. And that's what
What do we do?
We should blow it up.
Judging from these sensors, the object has high levels of CO, H2, and hydrogen sulfide gases.
So no, Nikolai, blowing it up now would cause an explosion, bringing massive amounts of debris coming towards us at a very fast velocity, which would be bad.
The reader estimates
You got that, right?
we have about 24 hours till impact. How are we supposed to get rid of this thing, guys?
How about we use a kinetic slug and shoot it with hydrogen as a propellant? I mean, we already have a lot of hydrogen on Titan anyways.
So we do get to blow it up?
More like knock it off course. But yeah, I guess so.
Alright, well let's get to work.
So as it just goes forwards, it gets closer, and then they shoot something out, and it just flips around. That's kind of how it ends. Along with what this was supposed to look like, I want to show you what my project looked like. We took a whole different direction, and what Chris was talking about, he was talking about choice. And this is something that we were able to get in this project. Instead of creating a blog, my group created a Twitter. For the theme of this project, instead of being scientists or astronauts, we chose to be rappers in space. And we had the super gangster name of Astro Swag. And just letting you know, we did rap in front of the class.
Can you do it now?
I'm alone, though. I need Brendan
okay.
Hannaford and his sick
Need a beat?
beats. Yeah.
Maybe later.
Maybe later. So if you want to scroll down a little bit, kind of towards the, these are super interesting.
And you can follow them too.
Yeah, you can follow us.
follow
That'd be
Astro
fun. One of the girls in my group, she actually loved this so much, she's actually continuing to post, even though the project was done last year. So our teacher, Miss Warnock, she gave us the problem, you detect unusual activity in the Kuiper belt. What do you do? And this was our response, OMG, what is this? The temperature be rising like our fame out here. 30 degrees hotter than yesterday. And that's kind of how we responded. We did give the content, we did give the information, just in such a creative way, and we really embodied the characters of rappers. So go ahead and look at these. They're pretty funny. I really like them. And also, our space pod was done differently. Instead of creating a 2D model, we created our space pod in the super popular game of Minecraft. So this is Brendan Hannaford, and he's going to do a walkthrough of what our base looks like. There isn't any sound because he didn't talk.
Can you tell us what we're seeing?
Yes, right now you're seeing the outside of our space, our habitat, our biodome, AstroSwag base entrance, members only, so only us. And right when you walk in, we have our hazardous materials in our bin. So we're not going to want to bring our hazardous materials into our house. So we put them all in a bin, which is an airlock. So you open it, and then you leave, and you close it, and everything is airlocked in there. So none of the hazardous material gets into our house. This is our air control in our hydropower room. So as we go up, you can see our oxygenation filter and our temperature regulator.
Very cool. Maybe we can pause there. To a lot of people who'd be watching this, they'd say, oh, you guys just goofed around in Minecraft, right? Obviously, it was fun to do in Minecraft.
It was very fun.
Okay. But clearly, there's some connection here to what you were learning in chemistry as well. Tell us about that connection.
Definitely. So the oxygenation filter and the temperature regulator, like what you just saw, we were on Pluto. So where are you supposed to get oxygen from Pluto? So what we had to do was, grow plants and recycle that oxygen and find out a way where we were able to survive or build things in our biodome which would help us survive. So what would create was an oxygenation filter, and then we had to describe it in our blog how we made it and what that would actually be. And we also had our temperature regulator. Since it is so cold on Pluto, since it's so far away from the sun, how are we supposed to get heat? So luckily for us, we brought matches, apparently, and we set things on fire, and then we recycled that heat in our temperature regulator. So in our blog, if you go and read it, you can see how we did that.
Very cool. You will? I think it's you.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to share was how we assess at New Tech. So one of the things that we have linked into this Google Doc is a project rubric. And this is actually the content rubric. So like Vanessa and Chris have been saying, we don't neglect content in our assessment and what we're doing. It is very important. And so I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to pull up that rubric and just take a look at it. And this rubric, it looks pretty standard. It has 4 columns. And go ahead and look at the last 2 columns, which are proficient and advanced. And this outlines what the teacher expects students to know and be able to do as part of their project. So while Vanessa was playing around in Minecraft, or what could be perceived as playing around in Minecraft, and working with her team, she was working towards mastering this content. So take a couple minutes, take a look at that rubric, and then tweet either about the rubric or about the project that you just heard about and how you see deeper learning fitting in to this rubric. So we'll give everyone a couple minutes to do that and kind of tweet out what you're thinking.
And I don't know if we have a full couple minutes, but
Okay.
if you can
Yeah,
multitask a little bit there and,
Sure.
and tweet something out. The question is just in this first example so far that Vanessa and Peter talked about with the assessment, what sort of elements of deeper learning are you seeing? And how is that connected to technology or not? Ask questions. If you think that maybe we could have gone deeper, pose that in Twitter with the hashtag deeper learning and ISTE13. In fact, we should maybe pull that up while people are doing this.
Yeah, let's do
How about
that.
we do that?
And while people are tweeting, I could talk a little bit about a little bit more on assessment. So it's not just the content, it is all those other deeper learning skills. And if we have time a little bit later, we'll try to do a quick overview of ECHO, which is our online learning management system. And and the way we assess students is they do get a final grade, so a student might be getting a B+ in chemistry or whatever the class might be. But that grade is not calculated on tests and quizzes and things like that. It's calculated based on their mastery of the school-wide learning outcomes. And so Vanessa will talk a little bit about those in her portfolio, and if we do that ECHO overview, we can see that too. So a student might be getting a B+, but they might see that they're actually getting a 65% in critical thinking. And so that allows for students and parents to really think about what it is that student is good at, what it is that student could improve on. It allows them to have a little bit more of that growth mindset that Chris was referencing earlier. So it lets them take a look at those skills and really improve on that work.
And it looks like we have some people tweeting here, which is great. Babette, who teaches at one of the New Tech schools, talks about it being creating the next generation creative knowledge worker. That's great. Adina, deeper learning is never really finished. Answers lead to further questions. I like that a lot. Inquiry-driven, student-centered, fantastic. And so on. So keep tweeting in here. We'll check in with it. But deeper learning and ISTE13. So let's jump into a second project that we have for you. And this one is not a New Tech Network project. Like we mentioned at the beginning, where there's a lot of great people, a lot of other great organizations beyond New Tech that are also doing fantastically deep, relevant things, and technology is at the center of many of them. And so one of our partners in the San Francisco Bay Area is Envision Schools. And Envision is a small charter management organization. They have about 4 schools, but they also work with schools all over the country through some of their consulting. And I recently had a chance to actually go down and see this project in action. It's called the Upside Down Academy. And it's got a lot of video in it, so I'm going to just kind of give you a quick overview, and then we'll actually watch some of the videos. But this is a great little concept, and it's so simple. And in fact, everything's online. You can click over there, and you can see exactly how they're doing all of this. It's very transparent. And so the concept for this is basically do the reverse of Khan. So put students in the seat of being the ones teaching, and use video to do that. And so instead of watching Khan videos, they are going to actually create videos that teach other students how to learn. So the directions are very simple. You have to learn something. You have to pay attention to what you find confusing. Why? So that way you can help other people through it, right? Come away, find up with a way to make it less confusing, and then do something with it that's online. A blog post, a video, a song, whatever it is. Generally, they've done videos so far, but you get the idea. One of my favorite things about this project that they've done is they built it on the notion of the protege effect, which is not necessarily a new notion, but you can click that link to learn more about it. But it's a very simple idea, and you'll see it down here, that when students actually have to teach something, right, they learn it better. We all know that, and yet we don't do that nearly enough, right? But it's not just teaching it to just a person next to them, the wider that audience is, right, and the more empowered they feel to reach a lot of people with what they learn, then the stakes go up. The stakes go up, and their desire to want to make sure they're doing it in a very thorough way kind of goes up as well. So that's called the protege effect, and so that's what this whole project is sort of based on. So what we wanted to do is just show you a couple of the videos that some of the students have done, and then maybe a couple of the reflections that they have. So this first one, these are all math videos, the two I'm going to show you here, and you'll see that what they were required to do from the very beginning is they had to do some things that fit with that deeper learning outcomes that we talked about a few minutes ago. The very first one is they had to say, what's your confidence level? Not confidence level in making a video, confidence level in the math, right? So what this student said is, I'm probably not an expert, but I'm close. I've got a very good understanding. In other words, they're kind of 80% expert. If you have to identify that from the very beginning, that's really helpful in driving how much more you might have to learn, number one. It's also really good in letting the audience know what to sort of expect in your own expertise. So I think that's just a brilliantly simple thing that anybody can do to kind of, from the very beginning, say how good the confidence level they are in a particular skill or knowledge area. So then what they did, though, is on the left-hand side, outside of the video, they were required to actually chronicle their learning. And they had to use the same strategies they used in class. Swap bat, so this is the goal here. The knowledge, use the quadratic formula, recognizing quadratic equations. Sounds like a standard, right? Kids are actually making the standard apparent. And then the skill, solve equations by using the formula and solve the equations. So then they did I do, we do, you do. You actually heard that in a video earlier as well. So they're gonna do it, they're gonna model it, then they're gonna ask us to do it together. In other words, I'm gonna model it and then show you the answer. And then they're going to actually give you a problem to do on your own and not give you the answer, right? And then at the end, they're going to give you an exit ticket checkpoint and an exit ticket reach. So if you've heard of these terms before, right, the students are actually taking on the role of the teacher and taking on the language of the teacher. And that's pretty cool, right? When students are actually taking on that ownership of all of it, not just creating a fun video. So let's watch this particular video, and they're all very different, but this one's kind of interesting, and then we'll look at see what the students thought about it.
So one day when you're sitting in math class thinking about your benchmark presentation or finishing your video and your teacher starts talking about something called the quadratic formula and you're just like, what the heck is going on? Well, my friend, we're here to help you. Negative Brandon couldn't decide if he should go to a radical house party. Being the square that he is, he decided not to go and missed out on 4 awesome chicks. The party wasn't over until 2 a.m. So now we're going to show you how to use this formula in action. The problem we're going to show you is x squared plus 2x minus 3. So before we even start solving, we're going to show you the format to the equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. The a stands for the number in front of the x squared. In this case, there's no number, so you can just put a 1. The b stands for the number in front of the x, which in this problem is 2. And lastly, for the c, it's just the number that's there. In this case, it's negative 3. So your problem should look a little something like a equals 1, b equals 2, and c equals negative 3. Now, our first step to solve this problem is to plug in the b, which is a 2. So your equation should look like x equals negative 2 plus or minus square root of 2 squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And now we plug in the a, which is a 1, and we get x equals negative 2 plus or minus square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times c over 2 times 1. Now that we got our a and our b plugged in, all we have to do is plug in our c, which is negative 3. And so our problem is going to look like x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 3 all over 2a. All over 2 times 1. And all we have to do now is just multiply what we have left outside the square root and inside the square root. And you should get something like...
So you guys got it? So we're going to see in a second what students thought about that, but what about you? What did you think about it? Was it confusing? Did you get it? Didn't get it? Did you think she went too fast? Do you think it was purposeful for her to go fast? She sped it up. Why in the world did she do that? Because it's video. It doesn't matter how fast it is, right? It's video, right? You can go back as many times as you want. So what's interesting is we'll look and see what the students thought here in a second. This is kind of just a fun way that they ended the video here. They just kind of just went in and did this. That was kind of cute. And so what happens here is the students were then asked to watch these videos. And then they came back and made comments. And you'll notice that they made these in two ways, warm feedback and cool feedback. Do we do this at New Tech too?
Yeah,
Yep.
we call it I likes and I wonders, but it's the same idea.
Exactly. So the warm feedback are sort of the things that they liked, and the cool feedback are the things that they wondered, the things that they think they could improve. Sometimes we think language doesn't matter. It matters a ton when giving feedback, right? It's the difference between harsh feedback and feeling like, oh, that really hurt, versus, oh, that was constructive feedback. And so we use language like I like and I wonder to help those things. At Envision, they use warm and cool for that sort of thing. But look at some of the comments that they have here. Warm comments. I like how you explained it in detail. I like your use of language. I like the fact that the video was not too long and you sped it up. All of you thought it was too fast, and the students that were watching it thought it was great at the speed that it was, right? Okay? So it goes to show you we all have different learning needs as well, but maybe also as kind of a digital generation, they knew something about their audience, what their audience needed to keep it engaging, right? In fact, that student said it's not too long. That's a long video. That's like 6 or 7 minutes of doing math, right? Imagine if they didn't speed it up. Whoa, that would have been really super long, right? Yes, we might have been able to follow it, but they're counting on the fact that their audience knows what to do with video, right? To rewind and watch it again. That didn't happen in every video, by the way, and that's why I think this one is particularly interesting. Let me show you one more, because it's very different. Let's see, here's one on solving polynomials. Okay, and you'll see again that they did something very similar. They recognized that they're not an expert yet, 80% expertise. They put their objectives, their knowledge, their skills in very detailed form. What they did, the we do, you do, all of that, it's all listed in there. So let's see what their video is, because they have an interesting kind of way that they started this.
So imagine you're lying in bed trying to sleep. You've got a big
All right,
test
wait,
or
hold on, you
something
gotta hear this.
tomorrow, and it's So imagine you're lying in bed trying to sleep. You've got a big test or something tomorrow, and it's 3 a.m. Just as you're about to drift to sleep, your TV flicks on. You hear a voice and
solve this polynomial or dot.
now you may say something like, oh no, I don't know how to do that, what shall I do? And then you die. This video is to make sure you can solve that problem and get back to trying to sleep. Here's our objective for what you should know by the end of this video.
Students will be able to factor second-degree polynomials. Students will be able to use diamonds to factor.
Sure sounds like standards and objectives, right? But now
rectangles to
students are
factor,
using it?
and students will
The language?
be able to solve for x.
Disregarding prior knowledge, this is what you should know by the end of the video.
The knowledge you will need to know is what is factoring, what are second-degree polynomials, what are generic rectangles, and what are diamonds.
Now for our first problem, this one we will be doing on our own. It's similar to the one mentioned earlier, but a little easier.
So we're going to start with the second-degree polynomial.
What are they drawing on?
5x plus 3. So you have
Sidewalk,
to put this
isn't that
problem
awesome?
into
When I first looked at this, I thought it was like, you know,
so
an old chalkboard
first
or
thing you
something,
need to do
but
is
it's
multiply
shooting down on
2x
the sidewalk
and
with
3
chalk.
and put it at the top of the diamond and you get 6x squared. And at the bottom diamond you put 5x, the middle number, and you need to find two numbers that will multiply to give you 6x squared.
So we're not going to show the whole thing, but you get the idea. Here's a student group that had the same project. The same exact project as the last one. They were just given a different kind of math solution that they had to demonstrate, right? But they interpreted it creatively in an entirely different way. And absolutely hilarious. And then you die, right? which is absolutely hilarious. Now, why they made all those decisions, if I sat them down, I'd love to know why they wanted to use a computer voice, why the cats, what the, you know, and then why they went back into the real world with the sidewalk the way they did. I mean, it's fascinating decisions. The key part here is they thought these decisions would help motivate other students to learn this better. That was their take on it. Would you or I do this? Probably not in a million years, right? Khan Academy wouldn't do this, right? To them, Khan Academy is boring. You're not listening to me. I'm the kid. I'm the learner here, right? Okay, this is what relevancy and knowing an audience really, really looks like and what choice really, really looks like. And again, if you were to scroll through, I'm not going to read them all, but if you were to scroll through, you'll see some really interesting feedback in this one and other ones. Oftentimes, you'll even have kids say things like, I think your math might be off. Go back and check that, right? That's what you want, right? sometimes they say things like, improve the video this and that way, but I mean, this is not just shallow level kind of understanding of math. So that is, overall, that is the Upside Down Academy, and you can go and take a look at it. I wanted to show you just one video clip here. I've got a couple of student reflections down there, but there's this one in particular, and I'm going to just load it and mute it here for a second because I need to get to a certain spot. We need to get to 126 here in the video for it to load. Let's see if we can move it up here. Somewhere in here. By the way, shout out if my son ever watches this, my 11-year-old son Kyle, he uploaded this last night. His first time ever uploading videos into Google Docs. So pretty proud of him. Pretty cool. All right, so I ask a question here about this, I think to the point of Khan Academy.
The stuff we're doing to show us, like, oh, this is how you do the problem so we can complete it.
Why do you think it's good?
Oops.
Complete it.
Why do you think it's good to make your own videos instead of watching Khan's videos?
Because ours are so much cooler and we incorporate more stuff in it. Not really, but like, it's student made, and so I think other students can relate to it, other than just having someone writing on a screen and a blackboard and just, I like our videos. Yeah.
That's what students think of Khan Academy. He's just writing on a board, right? It's an old guy. To them, right? He's not that old, but to them, he's just an old guy, right? To them, they want to make their own meaning. And I think that says a lot about deeper learning as well. So if this project resonated with you, and hopefully you've seen some themes evolve here, again, tweet out some of those themes to ISTE13 and hashtag deeper learning, because I think some pretty apparent themes kind of emerging around what makes deeper learning work and when you combine it with technology. Okay? What's next, guys? What do we got coming up next? Measuring success. So we only have about 15 minutes left. So why don't I just briefly talk about, I won't do a demo of the Echo gradebook, but just talk about the importance of assessment, and then maybe you can show your portfolio a little bit, okay?
Good.
So obviously, we can't just let students do these things and just determine on their own if they're successful. We have to guide them in that success. And so rubrics are extremely important, but also holding them accountable to those deeper learning outcomes every single day is really important. And so I think you heard both Peter and Vanessa talk about how at New Tech Network, we actually have a grade book that takes those deeper learning skills on a daily basis. Students are assessed on those for every single assignment. So students don't, do you ever get a grade, like just an A on a project? Do you get like a single grade, or is it broken down?
No, it's always broken down, and what's very cool is you get an A in one aspect, but you might get a B minus in another aspect, and you wonder
why. So like what are the aspects? Like what are some of the outcomes?
Some of the outcomes like written communication, oral communication, content literacy, and collaboration are always infused in a project some way. So if you might get a really high score in oral communication, so you presented well, but you get a really low score in collaboration, and you kind of wonder why your grade is kind of in the middle. Well, you can look back at your collaboration score, and your peers will tell you why. You may have missed a couple of meetings that you were supposed to go to, or you didn't fulfill what you needed to do. So when we're able to break down our grade, it really helps us learn where we need to grow.
Fantastic, fantastic. And so when we talk about rubrics, we talk about breaking down things into different learning outcomes, and those deeper learning outcomes are the ones that we assess on a regular basis. So you need to give students guidance on exactly what that looks like on a per project basis, and so we have lots and lots of rubrics. In fact, if anybody's interested, New Tech has developed a whole series of new college readiness assessments along with Envision, our partner, because there's a great collaboration, that have been actually validated by Stanford, the SCALE group at Stanford, as fantastic performance indicators that map directly to college success. And so it's a really great project. It's funded by the Hewlett Foundation, and I'm sure we'd love to share it with people kind of when it's all ready. But if you want to learn more, come on up later and we'll tell you about it. The last two things I wanted to share, and then you can show your portfolio, is there's tools out there to help you with these things as well, to make learning visible. So e-portfolios are a great one, right? Pathbright is a newer one. There's a lot of others. Project Foundry is one, and we'll put that in the notes. So there's a lot of e-portfolio systems out there that you can use to kind of structure student learning. But you can also have it unstructured, and that's what Vanessa's going to show you in just 1 second, kind of how you can do more of a free-form portfolio as well. The one thing I'll put a plug in is if you're interested in beta testing a brand new portfolio system that uses mobile phones to capture the 80% of learning that isn't digital, then come on up. I'm actually running a private beta on a tool like that very, very, very soon. So you can come up and talk to me later on. But let's look at Vanessa's.
So we're going to look at my portfolio and what it looks like. I definitely tried to create my portfolio so you can see who I am. On the home page, you can see a couple of paragraphs, me letting you know who I am, where I grew up, and my interests. What are my goals? What I learned throughout my years in high school. In the very bottom, you kind of wrote, you can see that, well, here I am, take a look around, and, email me if you have some questions. So the very beginning is telling you about myself. Then you can move on to my resumes and what I have done for the past 4 years, which include things like, HTML coding and speaking fluent Spanish, which isn't really common. We also have like our activities and achievements, so just a typical resume. But what's really important and what's so different about my portfolio is that I include the learning outcomes. So these are learning outcomes that, these 7 learning outcomes that are influenced throughout New Tech. So written communication, collaboration, critical thinking, everything like that. And if you want to click on one.
Okay, which one?
Doesn't matter.
Critical thinking.
Sure. Critical thinking. I will give 1 paragraph defining critical thinking. What is it if you guys don't know? The second is how I apply it to myself. What have I learned about critical thinking, or what do I think it has helped me? How have I grown? And the last is showing you what I feel critical thinking looks like. So in this case, it is a radio broadcast for To Kill a Mockingbird, and what we had to do was, embody one of the characters and create a broadcast that's only audio. So how are you supposed to entertain a 50-student classroom when they're not looking at anything? So that was the hardest part of that project, and that's why critical thinking took a major role in that project. So if you hit next or you hit back, each learning outcome has the same format: defining, applying, and then showing the evidence.
Fantastic. So this is an example of an open-ended student portfolio, right, where they had a lot of choice, but they still had to have the structure to focus back on the deeper learning outcomes. So fantastic. That's great. We want to share, just with the remaining time, just share a couple more things to kind of extend your learning. If we can go back to the Google Doc real quick. So for next steps, by the way, if you want to tweet anything about deeper learning, what's the best way to assess deeper learning using technology or with technology, then tweet that out, and we're going to bring these up one more time before we head out of here. But we wanted to make sure that we gave you some homework, right? Your exit ticket out of here is to guarantee that you're going to come back into the Google Doc and explore at least 2 other things. And there's a lot to explore in here. So we've got some links in here to, can you go back there? Some links in here to resources of videos, websites and so on, from Edutopia to Buck to New Tech, and so on. There's rubrics in there. You can get back to Vanessa's radio broadcast she just mentioned, to some great projects. Babette in the front row, her video from her greenhouse project is up here as well. So lots of great things to explore. But we also want to challenge you to learn, right? And there's lots of ways you can learn. You can get involved with the Deeper Learning Network, and we have an annual conference, but you can also go to great events like the stuff that Napa New Tech puts on. Peter, you want to talk a little bit about the Center for Excellence?
Yeah, absolutely. So New Tech High has a program called the Center for Excellence that we use to get teachers and administrators trained on project-based learning and how we approach teaching and learning. So I've got some flyers on that up here, and there's some in the back, and there's also just some general information about the school. So if you're looking to learn more about New Tech High and our Center for Excellence and the professional development that we provide, we can help you with some of that as well. Let's give you a little bit of just background on our school.
That's cool. And there's even the equivalent here in Texas. How many of you are from Texas? All right, so Maynard New Tech outside of Austin, they have something similar in there. So if you're from this region, you can't get all the way out to California. They run professional development for people outside of their school, emphasizing many of the things that we're talking about here. And then the last one is if you're unable to physically attend any event and learn together, like we are here today, you can go and interact with some things online. PBL chat is a great one. Who participates with PBL chat? Oh my gosh. Well, this is a new one for you. Is it Tuesdays at 6 p.m.? Is that right?
It's Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
Pacific time. 5 p.m. Pacific.
I'll put that in
So
there.
if you ever do any of these ed chats or chats on Twitter where all it is you do the hashtag, right? The hashtag PBL chat at well, you said 5 p.m. Pacific.
5 p.m. Pacific.
On Tuesdays. We'll put that in the doc.
Yep.
You can actually go online and you can have a structure with thousands of other educators interested in doing project-based learning. And guess what? Because it's on Twitter, they're going to have a bent towards technology. Tons and tons of great resources, ideas, rubrics, lesson plans, project plans are all shared every single week. Every single week, 5 p.m. I think even in the summer. I think like there was one yesterday, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit lighter in the summer, but people participate.
Yeah.
And sometimes we team up with like PBL World with the Buck Institute, and we try to kind of mix it up a little bit.
So it's a great opportunity to just engage with other educators digitally, online, anytime. And of course, New Tech Network, AdVisions, Edutopia, there's lots of other blogs out there that can help you and keep up to date on all this stuff as you go along. So that's what we have planned for you today, but there's two things that we'd love to do because we have a little bit of time left. Is one, we want to make sure you go online and evaluate the session, and the link's right there to take you there, or you can go using the planner, the online planner for ISTE to get there. But also, we've talked a lot, and we usually are the type of people that like to interact more. We even were talking, how are we going to do in such a big room, get interaction going? And I don't know if we really did that so well today, but we'd love to, if you have any questions or comments or examples from your own world where deeper learning and technology are kind of coming together. We know you've got thoughts. You have need to knows. Yeah. Sure. Yep. Yes.
So is there a formative assessment afterwards, after making these videos? Is that part of it?
I can't speak to it exactly because it's at Envision Schools, but yeah, they have a rubric. They come back and they assess the students not only on the presentation itself, but on the math itself. What I don't know, of course, and you would assume that they're learning it deeper as they go along, right? What I don't know is that they come back and change that score and the confidence level goes up. That part I don't know. Is that their confidence level before they started or is it after? That's an interesting question. I'll have to find that out. I don't know that. That's a great question. Other questions out there?
Feel
Come on, we know you have them.
So excited.
We want your questions.
Absolutely. Sure. To that particular Upside Down Academy? So Upside Down Academy, I don't... Yeah, no, there's no age limits or anything. I think they've left it completely open-ended. They happen to be a high school charter group, but I think they left it open-ended. I also believe it's public and open, and so anybody could use that particular site and use that format any way you want. They would love it. Try it. And see what happens. They built that all themselves, and it's out there for everybody to use. So yeah. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Peter?
Wow, yeah, that's a...
Here he is. He's right there. That's what he looks like. He looks a lot like Peter Abboud, glasses, black shirt. Yeah.
I think the goal would be that you are providing the least amount of guidance as possible. So the more that students are able to do on their own, I think the better. But depending on where the students are at and the different types of learners you have in the classroom, you're going to have to do a little bit more than that. I'm actually a math teacher, and so when you're teaching math, you have to do a lot more formative assessments. You have to do a lot more checking in with kids, and so I think it depends on the subject, what they're learning. But I think ideally, the teacher is doing absolutely nothing, but we all know that that's not going to happen. So there's got to be kind of a little balance there depending on who you're working with. Does that answer your question?
What I would add to it is it's a lot of hard work. Right? And so
a lot of
New Tech Network, all those groups of of organizations that exist, right? We touch probably about, all told, that's about 10 organizations. I think we touch about 300,000 students, I think, all told, something like that. And 300,000 students in a country of 55 million students, right, is a blip on the radar. The question is why in the world isn't that 55 million number, right? And it's because it's hard work. It's not something that you do overnight. It's not something that instantly you turn on the switch and all of a sudden you're this great facilitator doing project-based learning and blah, 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 right? It's something that takes a lot of practice and a lot of failure. And you have to be willing to put in that time, that effort, to fail over and over again and dedicate yourself to mastering that craft because it's so different from what most kind of traditional teacher prep kind of taught teachers to be, right? And so, so the best thing I would say to add on to what Peter said is find yourself a group of people to go in together. There's a reason that all the people in our network do whole school design. It's easier to do as a whole school support group because it's hard, right? If you get just 1 or 2 teachers doing it, you won't have enough autonomy nor have enough impact to change a lot of the different pieces of the puzzle you need to get the support you need. So consider a whole design. If you can't get a whole school design or whole school change going, then try to get at least, a small group of teachers or a grade level or something like that. But you can't do it on your own. And luckily, there's lots of people out there to help, though. Not just New Tech or Advisions or of all these groups. I mean, there's people in every region and online willing to dive in and help you. Yeah. Sure. You want to talk about how student portfolios are done at Napa New Tech?
Yes, portfolios are actually done on your own time. You will get a rubric, what needs to be there and what needs to be done, and they will give you links for examples of last year's and other alumni, but everything that was done on here was done when I'm at home, after my classes, during my free period. It's all done on your own time. So you're taking the time to put all of that effort in to hopefully you get a really good portfolio that passes.
Now that said, though, there was some scaffolding. You had a digital media class in your 9th grade year.
We had a digital media class in our 9th grade year that did teach us the basics of Photoshop and Illustrator. And a lot of that, using Photoshop, being able to create pictures and programs and being able to transfer that onto our portfolio was really important. We have had students that create the entire portfolio in Flash, which is all coding and which takes a lot of time. So they used Flash to create theirs. I did mine easy. I did on Wix.com, but I used some of the projects that I had created in Digital Media 1 and Digital Media 2 in my project. Digital Media 2 also, he will start you on a portfolio. He'll start you on a Google site, which he'll basically make you put all of the content in there. It doesn't look as fancy, but you still have everything there. So our sophomore year, luckily, we had all of the content. We just had to transfer it so that it looks professional. So we can call it our professional portfolio.
So there are some integration with some of the courses as well. Peter, what's done, you guys don't do portfolios, do you? But what's done for teachers to kind of know how they're progressing in the profession, much like students?
That's a good. Well, I was even thinking about what we house in Echo and that kind of what we do there. So we didn't get a chance to show you Echo, and we can show you maybe after the session real fast. But it's our online learning management system, and teachers put all of their work into that. And so teachers can really go back and take a look to see, what did I do in my class 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I can look at student work because anything that's submitted online is housed in there. So it creates a really nice archive of all the work that you've been doing. And so Echo's still, I think, in its 3rd or 4th year, so there's not a ton of things archived, but ultimately teachers can go back and look at that. So we don't do anything super formal, but there are ways to go back and really explore the work.
And I do know of other groups, Expeditionary Learning in particular. They're a fantastic group, and they have a really strong culture of professional development where teachers are mentoring each other and also getting professional coaching. And in that process, they actually do create kind of ongoing portfolios, much like their students do, to be very cognitive on an ongoing basis about the habits that they're trying to cultivate in their classroom, much like the students. And so they map that together really nicely, and then they bring artifacts together, not just from what students are doing, but also from things that they're doing in their own professional growth, whether it's readings or presentations they're doing and so on. They bring that on an ongoing basis back to the rest of the faculty. So it's a really nice model. I saw it done really well at a charter school in Denver at an Expeditionary Learning School. Really cool. We can do one more quick question. Thank you for everybody who stuck around. Yeah. Sure. Sure, we can do that. So this is the link. Again, it's not going anywhere. It's permanent. And so you can come back to it. But we really appreciate you taking your time on the last day of ISTE to come and learn about deeper learning through tech. We hope that we rose to the challenge and gave you some tangible examples of things that we think are pretty powerful. And we, invite you to join us as part of that dialogue to push us further in our own thinking of this, not just at New Tech Network, but all the deeper learning schools. And you can contact us all via Twitter and online and so on. And we just thank you for coming out. So thank you very much.
Thank you.